Myth or truth? Online job applications don't go anywhere if you don't have a referral. 3, 2, 1. Gina!
I chose fact.
I chose myth.
We are not agreeing.
I am really glad that you listened to me.
Sometimes. One thing you've kind of said about all of these, there isn't just like one black or white answer.
Welcome to Job Search Stories. I'm Jen, a career coach, and your new go-to gal for all things career advice. I'm excited to share some tips and strategies today.
And I'm Gina. I'm an expert of job seekers here at Indeed. And together, we're going to help you navigate this crazy world of job searching. And hopefully, we're going to help some people get their next job.
And today, we are going to go over some common pieces of career advice that job seekers get and separate the myths from the truths.
Using these. It's going to be a fun game.
I'm excited for this game.
Yeah. And for anybody who can't see us, we have some cool little paddles that say fact or myth on them. This is the time where we take a question from a viewer. Liv is asking, I've heard that recruiters aren't even reading my resume, that applicant tracking systems are using AI to scan it for keywords and rejecting me before a real person even looks at it. Is that true?
Want to do this together?
We could do fact or myth.
Yeah, let's do fact or myth together.
Okay, cool. Okay. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Oh, okay. So I said fact and you said myth.
I said myth.
Okay. Because I'm like, maybe I haven't been listening in our past episodes, but you were like, applicant tracking systems, they're going to get you.
Here's the word that I think we should focus on, and I should explain this is why I said myth.
Okay.
You are not being rejected immediately because of an applicant tracking system. Okay. Applicant tracking systems are not set to throw out applications. They are set to sort and to help recruiters sift through applications.
Yeah.
And so the ones that are meeting the keywords, which are based off of skills and experience identified by the hiring manager as something that's needed to be successful in the role, those are ranked higher.
Okay.
So it's not like your resume is immediately going into a trash folder in that sense. So I think that's really what we should clarify here.
Okay. So you're basically saying like, this AI, it's not scary. It's not trying to not help you get a job. You just got to, make sure you're hitting all those keywords and...
Yeah, it's not personal. They're not trying to... It's not against you. It's really trying to make the recruiter's job easier by giving them something to focus on because, there are hundreds of applications that come in for one single role sometimes, right? So one person just does not have the time to be able to sort through all of those themselves, which is why, many companies are using that applicant tracking system. Like I've said before, 99% of Fortune 500 companies. It's a large amount. So it really is important to tailor a resume for an applicant tracking system. Do you want to know some tips to do that? Okay.
And then I have a question after, but give me the tips.
Well, some quick tips for how to format your resume to be parsed and read easily by an applicant tracking system. One, like we said, look at that job description. Look for those keywords in the skills and preferred and required experience and qualifications, sometimes even education, especially certifications. When you find those matches between what you have in your experience and background, make sure that those are included on your resume.
Okay.
Next thing we're going to do is we want to make sure the formating is correct.
No columns.
Tell me, Gina, what is it?
You told me. You said no columns.
I want to know that you listen.
No columns, no bars, graphs, no fancy formatting. Just keep it simple.
No headers and footers.
No headers and footers.
No, because those cannot be read by every ATS system.
Okay.
So if you've got your contact information in the header and an ATS system can't read that, that doesn't get parsed right. So that kind of leads into this next tip, which is to make sure that your sections are easily identifiable. So looking at things like having a section for professional summary, education, experience, skills, because sometimes ATS look for that keyword. That way it's parsing all the information kind of directly right after that, nice and neatly. Another thing that you can do is pay attention to your file format. So not all applicant tracking systems can read and scan PDFs.
Okay.
So if the job application says to upload a docx, that's what
upload
you should.
That docx.
Docx, right?
Yeah.
Follow the instructions completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if I'm not reading job descriptions, probably not reading the instructions. I'm kidding. Okay. I have one last question though, to kind of help Liv out.
Okay.
When and why did companies start using ATS, like applicant tracking systems?
I mean, they've definitely become really prevalent, I would say, in the last 10 to 15 years. My first recruiting internship was probably in the year, oh my God, I was doing some mental math here, maybe around 2004, 2005. And paper applications were still heavily used. And this was for retail. So it was still the process of coming in, filling out that paper application, attaching a resume if you had one, and that's how the application was received. When I moved into my first full-time role, which was maybe 1 or 2 years later, I was actually there for the first rollout of
the ATS,
our company's applicant tracking system. And so we were using a hybrid then between, we would still get some paper applications in, but we would also have our online applications, which were really nice because you could easily sort through that information. You didn't have to guess what somebody wrote because their handwriting wasn't clear. Gina, one time I got a paper application that was filled out with a blue Crayola marker and not even the fine tip marker.
Those thick boys.
It was the thick one.
It's basically like filling it out with a Sharpie. Like literally with permanent marker.
It was a choice.
Yeah.
It was a choice.
Yeah. Did they get the job?
No, I don't think they had enough experience.
Okay. Well, they were using a marker, so I'm assuming they didn't.
So, I mean, they've definitely grown in usage. I would say even as recently as, 2 or 3 years ago, I know I've said the stat that 99% of Fortune 500 companies are using an ATS. Even 2 or 3 years ago, it was only 95%.
Yeah.
So it has and is continuing to increase in usage just because, there are just more applicants.
Yeah.
People are looking for jobs, and it's just very difficult for recruiters to be able to source and sift through all of those on their own.
Makes sense. And I hope Liv beats that ATS.
Good luck, Liv.
Gets the next role. Yeah.
So what we're going to do, Gina, is we're going to go through each question. We are going to give ourselves a little countdown, 3, 2, 1, and we're going to show our take on whether or not we think it's a myth or a truth and give a little explanation as to why.
Yeah.
You ready to get started?
This is going to be fun.
Okay. We're going to start with the first one. The statement is, or the advice is, you should always give a salary range, not an exact number, when asked about your salary expectations. 3, 2, 1.
Boom. Okay, so we both think it's a fact.
Yes. Okay. Do you want to explain your answer first?
Okay, so this is advice that I got from you. Basically, I feel like you need to give a range because you don't want to cap yourself. If you give like one solid number or an exact number, it may be lowballing yourself and you may get way less money than they're even willing to offer.
Yes. Gina, I am really glad that you listened to me.
Sometimes.
I feel like maybe I answered the question twice, but at least we're on the same page here. Yeah, I would say, I say this is true, and I'll give a little caveat here. One is, when asked by a recruiter in the early stages, if you're going to give a salary, give a range, not an exact number.
Okay.
So you should definitely be prepared to give a range. But also want to recognize that sometimes people are not ready to give a range. They really want to hear what the job entails, and they want to know what the budget is, especially if it hasn't been disclosed. So always do your research, but just know that you always have the opportunity to put it back on the recruiter to give you a little bit more information before you give that range.
Yeah. Do your research.
Get some more information.
Yeah.
Knowledge is power.
You always tell me that.
It's true.
Well, do your research. Knowledge is power is a new...
I told you that today.
Yes. Okay. So can I read the next one?
Yes.
Okay. So I don't know the answer to this one, but we'll just see what happens. Okay. So the common piece of job advice is, job hopping is the best way to advance in your career and make more money. 3, 2, 1. Oh, So I'm wrong. I put myth because I legit do not know the answer to this. So I want you to give me some advice.
Okay. And I'm going to say this one is with a little caveat too.
Okay.
So the one word I don't like in this statement is best. So saying it's the best way to make more money. It is absolutely the fastest way to make more money.
Okay.
So
quick way to get
say,
some cash.
Absolutely. So it's not to say that you can't advance within a current company or, maybe increase and move up in the ladder and get, more responsibilities and more pay with those opportunities. But definitely is the fastest way to increase. And so the reason that I say this is because when you just think about budgets and how companies allot funds, there's usually more funds available for new hires than there are for internal promotions or increases.
Makes sense.
And so this is actually why it's really important to negotiate your salary when you're first brought on, because that salary is going to be the basis of every increase, right? If it's a yearly increase, it's likely to be a percentage of whatever that base is. If it's a bonus, it's a percentage of whatever that base is. So it's really important for you to be able to get that base right. And then if you think about how often you're going to get an increase, maybe it's every 6 months if you're lucky, maybe it's every year, and if you're working for a company that doesn't have doesn't look at salary on that regular cadence, then you might be going a while without getting an increase.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we can take a step back. Can you just kind of define job hopping for anybody who doesn't know what that term even means?
Oh, for sure. So job hopping is essentially just moving from one company and one role to another. There's actually another term, which I don't know if you've heard of, for employees or people that hop from one company to another one. Say they go from A to B, but then they go back to A.
Okay.
Do you know what that's called?
Nope.
They're boomerangs.
Okay.
And there are actually boomerang programs where companies and recruiters actually look to kind of pull past employees back. Because they already have the institutional knowledge.
Don't gotta train them.
They don't have to train them. They've gone somewhere else. And so they've gained those new skills. And they want them back because they were great employees. So if you're interested in using this job hopping technique to continue to get more salary, just know you can always go back. You know, as long as you left on good terms, there's always that opportunity to go back. And I see this a lot with people who don't want to leave jobs because they really like it, right? They really like the company. They really like the team, but maybe they're underpaid, or they feel like they should be making more. Right. So you go to another company, gain those skills, gain those funds, and come on back to that company that you really liked.
Nice.
Make a little bit more.
Okay. So you're basically telling me job hopping, it's a good way to advance in your career and get money. Not the best way. There's many other options, but it's still helpful.
Very helpful.
Okay. Cool. Do you want to do the next one?
Okay, Gina. So this next piece of advice is about applying in person.
Okay.
All right. So is applying in person with your resume better than applying online?
Okay.
3, 2, 1. I kind of just want to do this.
Because I honestly didn't know. I'm not going to lie. I just was like, whatever comes up first.
I'm waving. I'm waving.
Okay. So we're both kind of in between.
Yes. So.
Because I will say.
Let's hear.
In a previous episode, you talked about how that was the only option before was to like print out a resume and there was no applying online. So.
In the olden days.
The long time ago days.
We did only apply in person on paper. And, it's dependent on industry, right? Because there are some that are pretty much take the applications only online. As recently as last year, there was a survey that showed that 99% of Fortune 500 companies are using an ATS system, which means that that's how many, they're taking applications online. And they may not accept applications in person. However, if you're looking to work in industries like customer service or
food
sales,
service.
Absolutely. Food and beverage, it could be really good for you to still apply in person, make that personal connection. I know I told this story before, but my daughter, when applying for her first job, applied in person and was able to be interviewed right then and there and got a job offer right then and there. And
And wait, can you repeat, let people know what the the industry was that she was getting a job in.
Yeah, absolutely. So her first job is in the daycare.
Yeah.
Working with children.
So like early childhood education.
Early childhood education as a teaching assistant. So no previous work experience. So not qualified for a teacher.
My daughter is not qualified. That's what you're saying.
Not yet qualified for a full-blown teaching position. No. But yes, was able to walk into a daycare that my younger daughter attends and talk to the office staff. And now she gets to work with 2 to 3 year olds.
Fun.
All day
for
long.
Her.
Fun
Wouldn't
for
be fun for me. But now that I think about it, I feel like we talked about first jobs. That actually was how I got my first job. Like there was a friend who was like, hey, my job is hiring. Popular retailer in the mall. She was like, walk in. When I have a shift, I'll let the manager know you're here. Bring a resume. Did I need to bring a resume? No. Had no previous job experience. But yeah, I have applied in person before. So it depends.
I got my first job too. Yeah. I think it's a great strategy for people that are looking for that entry level or first job experience.
Yeah. Fortune 500 companies using that ATS.
Apply online.
So don't just walk into that building and think you're going to get the job off the street.
I mean, you wouldn't even be able to know who the hiring manager is in most cases.
That's true. I mean, you could just walk around the building and just be like, hey, who's the boss?
You would get past security. They're going to let you walk around a building.
That's true. Anyways. Okay, we got another one. I'm going to do this one.
Okay.
So you shouldn't leave a job without another one lined up. Is that a myth or a truth? Ready? 3, 2, 1.
And again, this one I would do a slight waiver for.
I'm fully on fact. You should not do that.
Okay, I want you to explain your stance first and then I'll explain mine.
I just think I would be too anxiety ridden to do that. So that's just maybe that's more of a personal thing for me.
Yeah.
That's not a good advice for anybody listening and / or watching. But me personally, I wouldn't do that.
Okay.
Because I just
where does the anxiety about it come from?
What if I don't get hired for months and months and months?
Right.
Yeah. That's scary.
Yeah. How are you going to support yourself?
Exactly. Just me, just little old me. I need to get that cash money. If I just leave my job, where's the cash money going to come from? Yeah.
No, totally agree. Fully understand with that reasoning. I would always recommend to keep your job, your current job, while you're job searching and looking for a new opportunity. Yeah. I just want to be very aware that sometimes that's not people's truths.
That's not people's reality.
Right? It's not the way it's going to work out for everybody.
Yeah.
Sometimes people are put in the job search unexpectedly. They're in a position they didn't plan for and they're unable to. Yeah. Sometimes they're in a work environment that is really toxic. Yeah. And they do the self-assessment and they realize,
can't wait it out. Yeah.
I can't. It's just not good for me to do this. Yes. Well, I would always, advise hold on to that job if you can. Just fully know that sometimes you can't. And
yeah. So what's the advice for those people though?
If you can't?
Yeah. I mean, or if you're even qualified to give this type of advice, like how to set your mind at ease if you don't have the luxury of keeping your job while looking for another job.
What I've been able to see is that, and just like you mentioned, a lot of the anxiety about it is really rooted around money.
Yeah.
And so really starting with putting together and understanding what your budget is, that gives you a good framework and understanding for knowing how long you can really go without having another stream of income coming through. Yeah. And it can also give you a little bit of ease of mind and to know, okay, I'm good for at least 3 months. Yeah. I can maintain either my current lifestyle or here are the places in my budget where I need to pull back to make sure maybe I want to extend that another month and give myself the ability to do that. Yeah. So really, I think just starting with that budget assessment is a good place to really get a sense of how long you can really be in that job search. And then that's where you start to decide, okay, should I take a job that maybe isn't necessarily what I want to be doing long term, but it's something to bring in some income right now. Yeah. All right, Gina, the next piece of advice that we're going to look at is you should always tailor your resume to the job that you're applying for. Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Fact. Hey, we both said fact.
We both said fact.
Ooh, I feel really reassured when ours are the same because, like, you have the answer. I'm just guessing. So,
well, I would say most of these are like 90% fact.
Okay.
And I will say that especially when it comes to tailoring your resume, if you're applying for a lot of different roles, sometimes that can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
You should absolutely have multiple copies of your resume because you will do some tweaking to it dependent on the job description and what a particular company is looking for. But you shouldn't necessarily be doing large overhauls because if you're taking that time at the beginning of your job search to really identify your skill set and what you're going to be looking for, from one company to another, there might not be large changes. Should be minor tweaks.
I mean, I would say that I just learned this probably a year ago. I was just putting all the same resume and all the same jobs and wasn't getting any jobs. So,
well, I mean, this is actually really interesting advice because there is even some debate about it within just the career services industry that I work in. And you'll see this with a lot of advice.
Yeah.
Some people are very kind of black and white in terms of you should always do this or you should always do that. Some people are very black and white in terms of the guidance they give because a lot of people like structure. They like to know I should do this, I shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But the reality is, you know, there's a lot of gray area. And so it really is dependent. But I would say if you're finding yourself in a position to where you are constantly making edits to your resume, that can really lead to burnout.
Yeah.
And that's a very easy place to get to into the job search. And it makes you just not even want to keep applying.
It's annoying.
It's hard.
Yeah.
So really just, you know, focus on making minor adjustments. That's going to help you continue to tailor and refine it for a role, but not be completely bogged down with the editing process.
Hashtag tailor that resume.
Tailor your resume.
Cool. Okay. I want to ask the next one.
Okay.
I think it's my turn. Okay. This is controversial. Real controversial. Okay. So, myth or truth? Nobody reads cover letters, so don't bother. 3, 2, 1. I said fact. You said myth.
It's a myth.
I don't believe that.
Okay, tell me why.
I'm not reading no cover letter, so I'm assuming no one else is.
Okay, so you don't read them, so nobody else reads them.
No. I just feel like, I mean, I'm not the person to give the advice. I'm not the career coach with years of experience.
Okay.
But I truly feel like cover letters are a waste of time. Why should I have to like pitch myself for this job when you can just read my resume?
Right.
Oh, I really want to work for this company. No.
Okay. So what if you're in a situation where you're applying for a role and there's 4 different Ginas and they all have the same background as you?
Impossible. It could happen. It's a pretty common name. But so,
names aside.
Okay.
First, names aside. Let's say you're applying for a position.
Okay.
And there are 3 other candidates with a very similar degree, very similar work experience, very similar skill set as you.
Yeah.
How is an employer supposed to then decide, okay, I've got 4 qualified candidates, but I can only move 2 to the next round?
Yeah. What you're saying is I'm not special.
I'm saying sometimes on paper, it's very difficult to tell who's going to be more qualified or a better fit for a role when you have very similar backgrounds.
So you're basically saying if you want to break through that noise, write that cover letter.
Yeah. And so one good example that I've seen in where this is applicable, and there's a lot of different instances in which you would want to write a cover letter.
Okay.
But with what I'm explaining right now, I've actually worked with a board certified nurse career coach. And he spends a lot of time coaching nurses on personal branding, which I think is something that you wouldn't maybe necessarily think is a thing.
For nurses.
For nurses, right? Because they're skilled. Yeah. It's a very specific skill set.
Yeah.
But that's the exact reason why, is because a lot of times nurses are applying for roles, competing with other nurses with very similar backgrounds.
Yeah.
And on paper, everybody's kind of looking the same, right? And nobody's looking like a standout in terms of who might be more qualified or a better fit for the role.
Yeah.
And so that cover letter is a really great opportunity for you to share your story, for you to really talk about what are your motivations? Why are you really interested in this role? Because that can make that human connection and get you to that next round.
You're saying it's a good way to like sell yourself, essentially.
Absolutely.
What are some good components of like a cover letter that you should definitely include?
So you should definitely have a good understanding of the job description.
As we know, in past episodes, I do not read those job descriptions, but...
You know what? I really hope that after some of our conversations,
I stop skimming.
You spend a little bit more time reading job descriptions.
We'll see.
We can always hope.
Yeah.
But yes, definitely looking at the job description and identifying 2 to 3 responsibilities or skills that are listed that you have that you want to really speak to. Ones where you can share an accomplishment, something that's directly related from your experience that meets that need.
Yeah.
You definitely want to express interest.
Yeah.
Let them know how you found the opportunity, why you're applying for it, and always make sure you include a call to action.
Yeah.
Include your availability. Let them know if you're available by phone or email and that you're really excited to set up that interview. That call to action at the end is really important for setting up next steps.
Nice. It seems like a lot of work, but you made it sound simple. So maybe I'll start writing cover letters.
I think you should. I mean, if nothing else, 3 paragraphs. Okay. That's what you need.
3 paragraphs. That's
3
not
paragraphs.
Too bad.
You can do that.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
You do the next one.
I'm going to do the next one.
Okay.
Myth or truth? Online job applications don't go anywhere if you don't have a referral. 3, 2, 1. Gina.
We are not agreeing. This is crazy.
Okay.
I chose fact, by the way. And
I chose myth.
Okay.
Let me hear you.
I mean, it's all about who you know, baby. All about knowing somebody who can get you in the door. So I feel like that's why referrals are so important.
Referrals are important.
Yeah.
I don't know why. This is like taking me up an octave.
Yeah.
But referrals are definitely important. But do you really think if you apply for a job without a referral, you won't get an interview or a call?
It's not that I don't think you won't get an interview or a call. So I think online job applications can go somewhere.
Okay, because this basically says don't go anywhere.
Yeah. Okay. So let me say like what I think. Okay, so I think that like you're less likely to get that job if you're not like the referral, you know?
Oh, so every job that you've because you've received because you were referred to?
No, but I think one of them, I really was like doing the most to make sure I got that job.
Okay.
Yeah. I was like reaching out to hiring manager every 2 seconds. I was doing a lot. And I think they just got really tired of me and they were like, we got to give her this job because she's
just going to keep emailing us.
Yeah. Show up at your house in the middle of the night. Like that type of thing. Because I wanted that job. So.
Which is not good or not career advice. We don't advise you
to show up at your hiring manager's
people's
house
houses.
Yeah.
It's not safe. It's not safe for you.
If I needed to do that, I would have done that. Showing up with the coffee and everything. Something nice to not seem creepy. Like, hey, know your coffee order. But yeah, I feel like referrals just get you to that job quicker.
Sure. Okay. I can definitely agree with your sentiment that referrals will help you get there.
Yeah.
But again, it's really with this phrasing, this kind of black and white statement of online applications don't go anywhere. That's really not true.
Yeah.
My last job, I applied online having no contacts within the city I had just moved to and was able to get an interview and
get the job. Nice.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are like that for sure.
Okay.
You know, referrals help. Referrals are great. Yeah. If you happen to know somebody at the company that you're applying for, ask them to submit your resume as a referral. So a lot of companies have a referral system. And don't be afraid to do that because usually there is a monetary bonus attached to hires.
Nice.
So people are usually willing to do it.
Yeah. But what you're saying is that
It's not the only way.
Yeah, your application will still be seen. You could still get that interview even if you're not a referral.
Absolutely.
Nice. And I feel like one thing you've kind of said about all of these so far is that there isn't just like one black or white answer to any of these.
No.
There is a lot of, in between for these common job search advice that we've been talking about.
Yeah, there's a lot of gray area when it comes to job search, for sure.
Yeah. But I mean, you could just listen to us and watch our videos and you'll get all the correct job search advice.
You'll get some good advice.
Yeah.
You'll get some good advice for sure.
All in all, it's all up to the person. Got to read that job description.
Yeah.
Tailor your resume, tailor that cover letter, and do the due diligence to get that job.
Research your salary.
Oh,
have
too.
a range in mind.
Yep.
For sure.
Okay, beautiful. And that's all we have. Thanks for playing that game with us. And if you need some more job search advice, make sure to drop a comment with any questions for us or any topics you'd like us to cover. And we also would love for you to send any other job search stories you have because we love to read them. And if you found this advice helpful, please make sure to subscribe, rate the podcast, leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. And we hope you enjoyed these episodes. We'll see you next time.
Yep. Bye.
Bye. Sorry, I'm not doing my best. I'm so tired. You have to say it out loud. Say. Do you
I'm getting there.
Okay.
Okay, Gina. So this next. Oh my God.
Sorry, I forgot to breathe. And it was catching up with me. Okay.